Okay, this topic we're going to talk more about how to solve for y if you have more than one variable there. So in problem A here, we're going to try to solve for y, which means I want to get y alone. I want y to stay there and I want everything else to go away. So the first thing that I would recommend that you think about is how to kind of chisel away everything. You have to remember order of operations, and you have to kind of go backwards from the order of operations. So for example, I see that I have an x minus 2. So this x is sort of hanging out. Remember, this 2 is attached to the y minus 1. So I could subtract x from both sides of the equal sign. Now if I do that, I'm going to end up with negative 2, because now I have 0 minus 2, which is negative 2, times y minus 1 equals 5 minus x, or negative x plus 5. The next thing I would do is I would get rid of that negative 2. And the only way for me to do that is to divide by negative 2, because negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. And so I have to do that to both sides. So now I have y minus 1 equals, and I'm just going to separate these out, negative 5 halves plus x over 2. And then the last step is pretty clear here. I want y alone, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides of the equal sign. And when I do that, I end up with y over here equals, and negative 5 halves can be thought of as negative 2.5. If I add 1 to that, I get negative 1.5. And that's one way of writing that answer. The next problem is slightly different. This time the y is underneath the square root symbol. Now a lot of you feel tempted to subtract 2 to get rid of that 2, but remember that square root symbol is like a house. Like y plus 2 are married, they're inseparable, you can't get them away from each other until you take that house away. So if I square this side, that's the opposite of a square root. The square root of anything squared is just itself. So I'm going to square both sides. Now remember that squaring both sides means I'm squaring x plus 2 all together over here on the right. So over here, the square root of y plus 2 squared is just y plus 2. And x plus 2 squared, remember, that's like thinking of a square that sides are x plus 2 by x plus 2. And if you want to find each individual part of that and then add them together, that's one way of finding x plus 2 squared. Some of you use FOIL and you write them side by side. And then you use FOIL first, outer, inner, last. But no matter how you do it, you're going to get x squared plus 4x plus 4. And then the very last step here, I see that to get y alone, I could subtract 2 from both sides of that equal sign. Now I see that y equals x squared plus 4x plus 2. And that's the answer. Much easier to put that into my graphing calculator if I have to graph it. Last problem up here, this time y plus 2 is being squared. Again, remember that y plus 2 is like married. You can't subtract 2 because they're inside of those grouping symbols and they're being squared. I can, however, subtract 1 if I want from both sides of the equal sign. No problem doing that. But this y plus 2 is stuck together right now. So now I have y plus 2 squared equals x minus 4. To undo a squared, I would take the square root of both sides. But remember, whenever you take the square root of both sides, you have to remember that could be positive or negative. Because a positive 3 when I square it is 9, but so is a negative 3 when I square it. So we say plus or minus. Now, the square root of y plus 2 squared is just y plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of x minus 4. Now the x minus 4 is in a house there. So last step I'm going to take here is by subtracting 2 from both sides of the equal sign, and I could write that answer y equals -2 plus or minus the square root of x minus 4. This x minus 4 is together. That's grouped together. You can't combine anything else. And that's probably as many problems with solving for one variable as you need for this section. So good luck. Good luck.